Everyone. Today we're going to be solving something called we're going to be doing something called conversions. And the biggest thing we have to be careful of is that conversions aren't like some of the things that we've been doing in the past. They're not proportions. So we're not going to be cross multiplying today. We are simply just going to be taking one unit and converting it into a different unit. So if we look at example 1 right down here, it says an island is about 2.5 miles long. How long is the island in feet? So our job is going to be to take the units that we're currently in, which right now we are in miles, and the ultimate goal is your final answer. We're trying to figure out how many feet are in 2.5 miles. So how we start this problem is we're going to start obviously by writing down what the unit is that we're going to convert. Now, all we're going to do to start is whatever unit that we have, we're going to start by placing over 1. Just kind of as a placeholder. You'll see why in just a minute. But what we're going to be doing in order to figure out how many feet are in a mile, we have to multiply this by something called the conversion factor, which is a fancy way of saying how many of one thing are actually in the unit that we're trying to get to. So if there's a conversion factor that actually goes from miles to feet, that's the one that we ultimately want to use. Now, if you look up above, you're going to see that we give you a whole bunch of conversion factors right in here. These are the ones that you need to solve any of the problems that you see down below. So ultimately, if we look up here, I'm looking for one conversion factor that actually goes from miles into feet. And if you guys look up here, I do see that we have one right here. We have 5,280 feet in 1 mile. Now, those numbers, that 5,280 feet and that 1 mile, our goal has to be how those are going to be what gets filled in my conversion factor. We can write those as a ratio. Now, the ultimate question is, how do I know which ones go where? And the great part is it's all depending on what units we start with. So if I'm starting with miles, then miles have to be the unit that's going to go down below. The reason being is because if we have miles on top and miles on the bottom, what that's going to do is it's going to cancel out that unit and it's going to leave me with the other one that's part of your conversion factor. So I'm going to fill it in. If I know 1 mile, there's 5,280 feet. We can fill in those numbers. And we can now go ahead and use this conversion. Because the really cool part about this is, the cool part about this is that the units that are left on the top are the units that you're currently in, which is feet. And that's exactly where I'm trying to go. So in fraction world, we have to be careful because I'm not cross multiplying. I'm simply taking the units that are there, 2.5, and I'm going to multiply it. Oops, sorry guys. I'm going to multiply this by the other number that's on the top with it. Oops, sorry guys. That got frozen for a second. We're back. So if I take 2.5, I'm going to take this number, I'm going to multiply it by the other number that's on the top. So 2.5 times 5,280 is 13,200. Now we have to be careful and focus on the units here. There should be units as part of every single one of your answers. But what you just found is how many feet are actually in 2.5 miles. So if we look at my next one, we have a sprinter that runs 2,000 meters around a track. So we're going to start off with my 2,000 meters. We're going to put it over 1. And our goal is going to be to multiply by a conversion factor. Now, the conversion factor that we would ultimately love is one that goes from meters into feet. And unfortunately, if we look up above at our conversion factors, I don't see any that go directly from meters into feet, which is sad. But we can still work through this. So let's start working through, and I'm going to look through all of my conversions that actually involve meters. And the only ones that I really see right now are the ones that are right here. Now, if we're ultimately trying to go to our final answer, which is going to be in feet, what we want to find is a conversion factor that could eventually lead me to feet. And the only ones, if I look on the left side, ultimate long-term goal, the only ones that really involve feet are these conversion factors right here. So if I could find a conversion factor that gets me to miles, yards, or inches, potentially those would be a really good conversion factor. Now, that doesn't necessarily happen, but the one that gets me the closest to any of the ones that I see over here has to be this one. I don't even see millimeters listed, decimeters listed, or kilometers listed anywhere over here, which is where all of my feet conversions are involved. So that tells me that this is the conversion factor that we're going to use. Now, I know it's not converting us to what we're exactly trying to get to, but it's getting us closer to where we want it to be. So if I know meters are going to be on the top up here, that means meters have to go on the bottom. So in that conversion factor, 1 meter is 100 centimeters. So 1 meter is going to be 100 centimeters. Now our meters are going to cancel, and what we're currently in is centimeters. Now we're going to focus on, we're kind of moving along. We're going to look at any conversion factors that go, now if we can go from centimeters into feet, great. But over here, I really only see one conversion factor that uses centimeters. We can't use the one that we just used. We can't use it again because that would just convert it back into meters. So we're going to use the different conversion factor, and we're going to now fill those values in. 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. So down here, we're going to multiply by another conversion factor. There's 2.54 centimeters in 1 inch. All right. And now conversion-wise, my centimeters are going to cancel. And now our units are going to be in inches, which is closer, but we're still not quite into feet yet. But I'm going to look for a conversion factor that now uses inches. And the great part is, if we look up here, the only other inches conversion that we have is up here is there's 12 inches in 1 foot. So I can fill in those values. There's 12 inches in, mile of writing is bad, in 1 foot. And now my inches are gonna cancel, and we're gonna be left in the unit that we're trying to find. So all of this is really just one big multiplication problem. I'm going to take 2,000 times 100 times 1 times 1, and that's going to leave me with 200,000 on top. Keep my units with it. On the bottom, all of my units canceled, but I'm still going to take 1 times 1 times 2.54 times 12, and that's going to leave me with 30.48. All right. And my final answer, once I go about dividing this, we're going to take 200,000 divided by 30.5 or 0.48, and that's going to leave us with 6,561.68 feet. Sorry, guys. All right. So our last one here, it says we are buying rope to make a tire swing. You need 128 yards of rope. At the store, the rope is sold by the foot. If it costs $1.68 per foot, how much will you spend on rope? So we're starting with 128 yards of rope. So that's the first thing that I'm going to start by writing down. We have 128 yards, and I'm going to put it over 1. And now it really comes to the point where we have to choose our conversion factor. And in this problem, it says that we're trying to go from yards into feet. So we know that whatever conversion factor we choose, I know yards are going to have to go on the bottom, but we're going to look up top and say, well, are there any conversion factors that go directly from yards to feet? And in this case, we're in luck. It tells us here that there's 3 feet in 1 yard. So when I look down below, I'm going to fill in those numbers. In 1 yard, there's 3 feet. And I know though now that my units are going to be correct. I'm ending in feet. My yards are going to cancel. And all we have to do is multiply across. We're going to take 128 times 3, which is going to be 384. Keep the units with it. And on the bottom, we really just have 1 times 1, which we would divide 384 by 1, but we just get 384. Now in this question, this isn't my final answer though. That is how many feet are in 128 yards. But this says that if it costs $1.68 per foot, how much will you spend on rope? Well, if we know that we're buying 384 feet of rope and it costs up here's $1.68 per foot, then our last step is going to be, we're going to multiply the price times the amount that we're buying to figure out how much we're actually going to pay. So 384 times $1.68 is $645.12. All right. And that's it. Those are conversions. So for your homework for tonight, you are going to want to make sure these are not on the homework, but these are all the conversion factors that you have available to you. Okay. But you guys can now move on and start working on the homework for the day.